Well, now you have sound, guys, and ironing out all those bugs. But anyway, let me try this again. So people are saying glitchy. You're right. There was no sound. Hopefully, I'm taking care of the glitchiness a little bit. Uh, Still looks a little glitchy from what I can see. I apologize for any glitchiness, but at least you have audio right now. And as the feed starts, we get questions up and running. I'll try and accommodate for the glitchiness that takes place and see what I can't do about fixing some of that after I get Colter in here. So this week I have Colter Michelson on. We will be working at having an interview with what's going on there. I'm reading all these comments right now. It's like no sound, no sound. Now it's back, all that stuff. So hopefully the video will smooth out here in a second as I get things fired up and running. But at least I got the sound taken care of. Thank you for bearing with me. Here and there, I also have issues, and it's a learning curve, and I missed a button. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to bring Colter on so that I can't see about possibly getting things fixed up and a little less choppy for you all, and we'll take it from there. So let me transition over to having Colter on the screen with me and introducing him and getting that all running. So here we go. All right, so Colter, you're now on, and welcome to what's going on here with the show. I know you could hear me, but you couldn't see any of the stuff or any of that, so we have a little bit of jumpiness going on, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick it to you and say, hey, would you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm going to send the screen to you and see if I can't take care of some of that jumpiness.
For sure, you got it. So I'm Colter Michelson. Currently residing up in the mountains in Colorado. Got an awesome wife, Michelle. Two kids, Charlie and Ella. They're both one's 3 and one's 8, and we all enjoy these little tiny trucks together as a family. And so yeah, that's a little bit about myself. I'm a contractor by day. I get to swing hammers for a living, and I thoroughly enjoy that. That's my bread and butter. And what was that, Adam?
Oh, nothing. I'm clicking buttons. Sorry.
For sure. And so yeah, I'm a contractor by day, and at nighttime, after the kids go to sleep, I come down here and burn the midnight oil. And so I'm thankful to be here, and I'm blessed to have this opportunity and get a chance to talk about my tiny trucks.
All right, man. So while I was on the other screen, I tried to click some stuff, get some things taken care of. Guys, in the comments, please let me know if you see it continuing to be choppy. I can only judge that. Like, I have my cell phone down here kind of trying to see what you guys might see in your live feed, but that's only so accurate compared to my internet. So, again, thank you for bearing with me. Technical difficulties. I'm no expert. I'm no pro. I just started all of this, and I miss buttons. I do all kinds of stuff, so thank you again for bearing with me. So Colter, how long have you been in the scale RC segment of our hobby?
So like the scale version of it, that's really been like the last year and 2 months. I really picked it up last November. I picked up a TRX4 and just absolutely fell in love with it. Every aspect of it, taking pictures of it, driving it. The kids loved it. I would hook my son up in his little trailer upstairs, and we'd pull him around the living room. And so that kind of kicked it off. And then, one truck leads to two to three, and the next thing you know, you're like knee deep into the RC thing. And it's gotten me to here, and I really enjoy building them now. And once my kids get a little bit older to start the building aspect, I'm going to totally bring them into it. And yeah, that's kind of where it started with the scale stuff.
Right on. That's awesome, man. So do you remember, like, what was your thing that kind of got you in scale segment of the hobby? What is that, like, turning point that kind of tipped you in that direction?
It's tough to say that. I live on a pretty busy mountain corridor coming out of Denver, and I see so many trail rigs, like one-to-ones, every day. And like seeing them, and they cost tons of money to build. And I was like, that's awesome. I want to try that, but how can I do it smaller? Well, boom, 1/10. There you go. So like I said, I picked one up, and it was just it kind of took off from there.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, I can see how like kind of looking at and focusing on those 1/10 rigs that go up and down your road would definitely, or not 1/10, full size rigs going up and down your road, be like, man, I want to do that. And then the money aspect, I think, is why a lot of people kind of fall into this. And once you're in it and you're in it deep, now you kind of realize like, well, maybe if I'd have just saved all the money, I could just buy one of those rigs. So
Over and over, totally. But no, I totally dig this. This is so fun to me, and like seeing all those one-to-ones. I mean, that's just inspiration daily. I mean, like any given time, it's like, boom, lifted Forerunner, boom, old Chevy lifted. It's just like, holy cow, okay, sweet. So that's where a lot of it comes from, and that's definitely what sparked me to go pick up that TRX4.
right, and that's awesome. So you started with the TRX4, and that's, I mean, it was a cool time to be able to start, man. TRX4 is a cool truck.
Oh, definitely, they are. It was a learning curve for sure. TRX4s have a lot of bells and whistles, and personally, I learned to dislike those bells and whistles and kind of go more bare bones. And they are awesome rigs. Don't get me wrong. Little hard to build with. I find myself getting a lot more SCX10 parts for a TRX4 than I do TRX4 specific parts. So I was kind of like, okay, well, let's try and build an SCX10. And once I started doing that, the availability of parts is just tenfold compared to a TRX4. So
Right.
kind of kind of lean towards that direction.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think that the aftermarket for a long time has stuck behind Axial. So you have all those mom and pop shops, and then bigger aftermarket manufacturers as well, who have always kind of stuck with and supported Axial and pumped out products that were very much associated with Axial,
Definitely.
and supporting those trucks with what's going on. So when we first logged in, I had a question for us that was playing during all of that other stuff that was going on there. And it said, do we prefer driving in like muddy areas, water areas, or like kind of dry on the rocks, like nice locations?
Sure. Well, so me personally, I like driving over the dry rocks, through the water, through the mud to get to the spot I'm going. So I prefer it all. I mean, I have a blast with it. Mud, you got to do a little more maintenance afterwards with mud and water, especially. So if you go to pay, you pay to play, really. So when you drive through a ton of mud and you don't clean your bearings, and the next time you drive your rig and it sounds like a squealing pig going down the road, that definitely can happen.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. For me personally, I try to stay out of mud and water if at all possible. I always seem drawn to water, but I very
Mhm.
much dislike mud. So I try to stay out of those things if I can. However, if it's in a competition course, my way between next gate, I will be going whatever is in the way. It doesn't matter to me.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I function. Um, so if you weren't into the scale RC hobby and doing this as deeply involved as you are, what do you think your hobby of choice would be?
Boy, that's it's definitely something to do with the outdoors. I would probably be like a part-time guide, like a hunting guide or something like that, or a camping guide, or I have an affinity for the outdoors, and it would definitely be something along those lines. Like when you go camping and you take your crawlers with you, like that is a blast. I totally dig that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I could see that for sure. And with the love of the outdoors, the crawlers would definitely be a thing that could be a nice add with what's going on there.
definitely, and I mean, I love fishing. I collect guns and knives. I mean, so if I didn't have the scale hobby, I mean, I'd still have my hands full. But this one is fastly taken over.
Yeah, man, I don't doubt that at all, and you can see it from all the stuff you're posting online, all the builds you've got going on, so on and so forth. You can tell that it's kind of at the forefront of what you're doing at the moment, and it's definitely showing. So let's talk about my next question that I've got going on here. It's a pretty standard one I like to ask a lot of people. Are you a big tire fan or a small tire fan? And if you look over your shoulder, you can see like you got some of both going on there. So
Big, little. I guess it's proportionate to what you're building. I originally on the six door had smaller tires, and then one day I went down to my buddy Sid's house at the RC basement, and he had these killer 3.2 wheels, and I was like, "Oh, what if I stuck some Fling Kings on there and made that?" And so I tried it, and it turned out to be a big tire rig all of a
mhm.
sudden. And then the new SCX10 I'm doing, this is a smaller tire rig, and then the K5 way back there, that's a small tire rig. So I guess I don't really have a preference. I'm good with any of them as long as it fits what you're building.
Right on. I get that answer a lot, man. I probably, I feel like everybody's found this diplomatic answer that says I like all of them. Which is what
Sure.
happens with the next question typically too. Are you a big fan of brushed or brushless, and why one over the other?
Turbo or supercharger. So at the moment, for crawling, I definitely am digging brushed. I've been running the Holmes Hobby motors with Hobby Wing 1080 ESCs, and they just paired together, man. It is a flawless, simple, easy operating system. So
hmm
for like the crawling end, definitely brushed. If I'm going to go out and bash and play with the Stampede, it's brushless. One funny thing, I put my Castle Sidewinder in my Charisma Coyote, and that has become one of my favorite rigs to drive. It is just insanely fast, and it's a little scale truck, so you can do some crazy jumps with it and stuff.
Yeah. I can imagine because I know the size of the Coyote. I can only imagine that with something that quick in it, it could be a
Right,
really intense truck to drive.
definitely. And it only weighs like, I don't know, 4.5 pounds fully loaded with a battery, so it's definitely a little missile.
Yeah. So speaking of multiple different trucks, from the ones we can see behind you, but do you have more trucks in your collection? Like how many are you kind of working with at the moment?
So currently, I'm just building this SCX10 at the moment, but then I have the TRX4 six door, the TRX4 Blazer, the Charisma Coyote, and then a good buddy David Stump. He's letting me borrow his ESC Barrage for the little kids to drive around.
Yeah.
So only about five at the moment.
hmm Well, I try to keep it down low in the number of trucks for me personally because the maintenance then takes over. So you don't get to enjoy them as much because something's always broken.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely!
I mean, I've talked to people with like 30, 50. Oh man, I think Mike Kirby had like 300 some in his collection of whatever.
Wow,
I don't even know. I can't comprehend that. For me, if I had 10, like that's way over what I need. So,
sure,
um,
sure.
yeah, I'm gonna ask all you guys out there in YouTube land, how many trucks are in your collection? Especially people watching after the views and people watching right now. Like, I'm curious, how many trucks do you have in your collection? What is an optimal number for you? What's your input in that regard? Um, so let's start with a little bit of that show and tell, and let's pick out like the favorite truck that you currently have right now, and share with the people, and tell them about it. Give them some info.
Well, obviously, I mean, it's my six door. That's my pride and joy. Um, Here, I'll get out for a second.
There you go. That's what everybody wants to see.
Definitely. Well, like I'll even do a body off shot. So this is the six door. It's a couple Tamiya Hilux, or not Tamiya, I'm sorry, RC four-wheel drive Mojave bodies that I
Yeah.
blended together. And then this is the TRX4 frame that it sits on with big wheels. I actually, for the rear drive shaft, this is kind of a funny story. If you guys can see that, I had to make the rear drive shaft out of a carbon fiber bow hunting arrow because I could not find one long enough. Until not too long ago, was watching Adam's show and saw that AJ Condon had the availability to make me one. So I'm probably going to have him make one for this so I can get rid of that. But that's definitely my favorite truck at the moment.
All right, man. That's awesome. So this is the one that caught my eye for sure. And so there were two things about it that really, really stuck out to me. And those two things were absolutely the color. I dig the color. It is not a standard color that you see people paint stuff, and I'm always looking at that because I just like to be different than everybody else if I can be, or different
Sure.
in some regard. And then additionally, man, the tire wheel combination with the size, like just how that body sits on that chassis and like everything about the overall look of it was really what got me.
Oh, I appreciate that. It was there's a lot of time spent in mental jail with that, figuring out how to do what and puts what where, and yeah, it was just TRX4s. Like I said, they're kind of tough to work with, having no parts available. So I had to do what I could with what I had, and I mean, this was the result of it, and it was an absolute blast to build. I learned a ton. I learned a ton through the communities online, and yeah, it's been a blast for sure.
Awesome. And so let's shift a little bit about to another question. Let's talk about the plans associated with the truck that you just showed off. So I don't know how many people know or would know about any of these things. I know I didn't when I first approached you about being on the show. I saw a cool truck, a lot of cool posts, very scale photography, and was like, I need to have him on. Um, but let's talk a little bit about what the plan is for that blue truck and where you're headed with that.
Sure. So the blue truck, that was solely built for my nephew. His name is Kavi Gray. He has pardon me, an extremely rare muscle disorder called X-linked myotubular myopathy. And basically, the short of it is his muscle structure is maybe at 15%, and he just anytime he gets sick or has a respiratory infection, it's weeks in the hospital, and he has a tough time getting around. So as I'm farting around with this truck one day, I thought to myself, how can I take my passion and turn it into a purpose? What can I do? And I knew building a rig and just selling it wouldn't suffice the money. So I was like, what if I made a nonprofit and built the rig and then auctioned it off along with some other items in a silent auction, and tried to raise some money to get him a wheelchair. So this wheelchair, the idea is to get him outside, to be able to go around and explore the outdoors. Like I said, I love the outdoors, and it's hard to hang out with my other nephew who's able upright and walking, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have Kavi who has to sit down and watch us. And I just want him to get in a chair, and follow us, and go. And so I built this truck, and like I spent hours on detail work on it and poured my heart and soul for it, just for him. So and then I got an idea of a company or a nonprofit, X-Link RC, X-Link myotubular myopathy. So
Mm-hmm.
um, my goal in the future is, I was pretty adamant on getting it going earlier this fall, and some things came around and got tied up. But I'm going to put the foot down really hard in spring here, and actually try and do something with that.
Yeah. And so that's awesome. Like that was a piece that I didn't have any knowledge of, and it's something that kind of came up in our conversation when we were shooting messages back and forth, and then when we were testing and having conversation. So I definitely appreciate what you're doing there, man. And I'd
Thank
love
you.
to see that work out to the best of its abilities, and then hopefully it would extend even past that, kind of, because we had talked a little bit about that too. Big goal would be to do a little more than that as well. But
Absolutely.
first goal is still, I mean, it's still a pretty lofty piece there, and so
It is. It's
ambitious, and I like
massive.
it.
Yeah, it is, and sometimes you can't quite shoot through the moon. You got to stop at the stars on the way, and he's my shooting star, so I'm going to do it for him.
Perfect, and that's awesome. So Uh,
definitely.
you talked about planning to name it. One more time with the name so that when it pops up, people will be like, "Oh yeah, that's what that is." Give that a shout out real quick, and then we'll move on to another question.
Sure. So the nonprofit will be X-Link RC, and then the slogan is Passion with a Purpose.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So watch
Definitely.
for
I
that to come
actually,
out, guys. I'm sure it'll come up in the future here. Let's talk a little bit about plans for future builds, man. I can only guess with what I've seen so far that the future is looking bright for you in the build department. And I
well,
see the Comanche sitting there. I'm guessing we're going to talk a little bit about that in this process as well.
sure, absolutely. So my one of my first scale builds was a maroon colored Comanche, and I fell in love with that truck. And then one day I was like, what if I tried making a crew cab Comanche? And I was looking at body lines online and was paying attention to what went where, and I was like, oh, I think I can make this work for sure. The only problem was it's you can see it's similar wheelbase to the six door, and that's like 16 and an eighth inches long. So it's it's another long dog for sure. So that was like the first big hurdle to overcome. And then what I actually did was I took a Team Raffi XJ hardbody and then the Comanche hardbody and made a cut. Bring it over here. Made a cut at the door. Oh, there goes the front bumper. Made a cut at the door here and then got this body line square and then made the window length I wanted it. And the actual hardest part is going to be getting this top blended in, but the lines actually came pretty close. So
Yeah, they
once
did.
once my hand is feeling better, I'm definitely going to start on some of that fill work and get it going. But I've almost got the chassis to a ready to run roller. I'm just waiting on a battery tray and then drive shaft.
Yeah. So, I have a quick question. If you want to grab that body again and chuck it up next to the camera here, uh,
Definitely.
you haven't been in this hobby for an extensive amount of time,
No.
but you're taking on and attacking some fairly significant body work and builds. Can you talk a little bit about to people who maybe are newer to the hobby? Can you talk a little bit to them about like kind of how you approach something like that? I think a lot of newer people are kind of intimidated about like, hey, I'm gonna cut these two cabs up and mash them together and see what I can do. Like, where did you come about the knowledge to make that happen? How did you? What was the thought process? How did that all go down?
So really, it's trial and error. I mean, first off, have confidence going in it and understand that you're probably going to fail. And I chopped up a couple bodies and definitely failed. But instead of stopping, I took that and I turned fail into an acronym: first attempt in learning.
There you
And
go.
for sure. And I tried over and over. And slowly I was like, okay, you got to like, what I do is I'll look at like the deep line of the body. And on the Comanche, if you can see down it, it's this one right here, directly
Mhm.
under the door gaps. And that was the line that I wanted to carry first and make sure that it was straight. And
Yep.
like the smaller lines then that fall in, those ones are easier for me at least to fill in and, make perfect with filler versus this long straight one. And so I first look at that line and then I look at the length of the windows and where the cut needs to be. And then I'll lay the bodies over one another and make a false template and then
Yep.
lay it over the piece I plan to cut. And then I use a kerf blade and a kerf saw to cut the bodies. And then it's just the styrene and the plastic from there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, right on, man. Did you have any like people in the hobby videos, sources like where you were getting some of that knowledge and info to kind of help push you toward um gaining what you needed to do there?
Definitely. So one gentleman, Scott Lampert, I think he does Scott Styrene Designs, or
Yeah.
it's something along those lines. But unbelievable work with styrene, and I was watching him for a while, seeing how he had done it, and you see other guys' techniques and methods, and it was kind of a correlation of all that. And I was like, well, shoot, I mean, I got to give it a try, and again, that just came back down to, getting your hands into it and saying, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. And I mean, it's tough to say like $200 worth of bodies you're just going to chop up right away. But I mean, if you have a plan and you're confident about it, you're halfway over the problem.
Right, and I think that you really just hit the nail on the head in saying that as long as you have some sort of plan and you're confident, like
Definitely.
confidence is key for sure. You just have to know that even if you do mess it up, it's just plastic and you can fix it.
Right. And I mean, there's so many good products out there now. I mean, if you get yourself a can of this stuff called MEK solvent,
Yep.
you can melt your panels back to whatever you want and add pieces here. I mean, it is some really unbelievable stuff. It's a little harsh for my likings, but you can definitely repair it. And like if you're going to attempt a hard body, maybe first time, buy a used one, sand it down, and if that's the one you want to chop up, then you don't have as much money invested into it to give it a shot.
Right on. That's not a bad choice whatsoever. A lot of the stuff that I've done has always been something that was used or previously abused by other people. Then I salvage it, fix it, make it look better, and
Hmm.
kind of do my own using and abusing to it. So,
Yes.
uh, let's shift briefly and talk a little bit about some of the photography stuff.
Sure.
I've noticed when I was following your feed and what you've got going on that the photography that you're doing associated with the scale crawlers is solid. It does a lot to emphasize the scale aspects of the truck and how they lay out. How long have you been into photography as a hobby, uh, aside from or right along with the RC hobby?
Sure. So photography, I grew up skateboarding and snowboarding. So naturally, once I got better at that, and you're riding with your friends, it turns into, oh, let's take pictures of one another, and then it's like, oh, well, let's get a cool shot. And that is definitely where my photography essence comes from.
Yeah.
And then my wife, she has such a keen eye for like good shots, where the angles should be. So we ended up the camera I used for a lot of the photography is actually hers, but I watched what she did, and then I incorporated what she did into my little tiny trucks, and it's kind of like boom, it worked. And so yeah, that's kind of where it comes from, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. So, along with that, like, what camera are you using? You like kind of alluded to using the camera that your wife had, whatever. But like, what specifically are you using?
Sure. So it's a Nikon D5100 or 5300. I'm sorry, kit camera. It has the 18 to 55 millimeter lens,
Yeah.
and that's the only lens I shoot with at the moment. Other than sometimes I'll shoot through like a bigger macro lens I have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but other than that, that's it. And I've just really in the last, I'd say 6 months, actually started learning how to adjust settings and what they do and why they do it, and really learning the camera.
Absolutely. And I think that I've probably spent like the last year doing something very similar.
Hmm.
I started with my phone and decided like I was gonna go as far as I could go with my iPhone. I'm not buying a camera. I'm not gonna spend the extra money. I refused to do all of that. And then really what happened is I got too heavy into video editing on my phone and it was killing my phone. So
Sure.
it was either buy a camera and do some stuff with a computer or kind of back up off of what I was doing and I wanted to keep going. So um
Definitely.
when it comes down to it, you always shoot with the camera or do you sometimes go back and forth between the phone? Do you use the phone still?
No, I use the phone all the time. I would say it's 50-50. You can really do a lot just in iPhone's little bit of editing software they have.
Mhm.
And if you take a picture, and then what I always do is I'll take like multiple pictures, multiple angles, because it's a digital day. You can just click delete as we're filmed. That would have been a pain.
Yeah.
Um, that would have been really hard to do. So I'll take a whole bunch and I'll look at them and see which one I like, and then I'll go in and I'll tweak the color a little bit and saturation and the light. And you can with just an iPhone, you can do some pretty incredible stuff.
I mean, absolutely agree with you 110%. The iPhone does a great job. There are like two things that it doesn't do well, and for that I was like, okay, well I'll start using the camera some. So,
For sure.
uh, let's talk a little bit about editing. You said you're using your iPhone and you're doing some editing inside of the programs that are offered innately that are right on the iPhone itself. What
Sure.
other editing apps, tools, programs do you have access to? Are you using? Have you tried?
Zero, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Everything I edit. So I have like a memory reader for my iPhone or SD reader, and I'll upload my SD pictures from the Nikon into that, and then I'll go into the phone software that's the iPhone or iPhoto software, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll go into the editing. And you can actually, if you actually start to play with the software, they have pretty detailed stuff you can do in tweaking individual pieces of the light contrast and so forth. And
Yep.
uh, yeah, so that's all I've been using.
Well, and that's awesome, man. That's all free software that everybody gets on their iPhone, but
Absolutely.
every other brand of phone, excuse me, has something very similar. And
Sure.
so, one of the things, and I know you're in it, and you've been a big contributor, is over the last week I was like, a light bulb went off, and I went, I'm gonna start this scale RC photography group on Facebook.
Definitely.
And by the way, that's like a plug to like, hey, if you're really into taking pictures of your RC truck and making it look real, search that out. Make
For
sure you
sure.
answer all the questions. I'll bring you in because I want to create this community of people who want to learn and grow in that aspect as well. And so I'm happy to have you there. You have had some great posts in there that were super informative. And there's been a lot of that. There's some people just sharing photos of their trucks, but there's also been a bunch of people who are like really kind of pushing forward in what I would say kind of like nerding out together, where they're like, this is why I do what I do and how, and if you choose to take some of that and learn from it, that would be awesome. So
Right. Definitely. And I mean, there's no tricks that I have that I would hide from anybody. I mean, point, shoot, and share. Definitely. I love that. I love that community you started. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from it. You're going to learn a lot from it, as well as everybody else. And
There've already been like 5 or 6 posts where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't know that already. So
totally,
it's awesome, absolutely awesome,
definitely,
and the guys that are in there are great, and they're contributing in a very positive way. So if that's something that anybody's interested in, you might want to check that out. If it's not for you, that's cool too. Everybody gets their own thing.
right.
My next question is kind of still along that line. What advice would you give people who are like, keep taking pictures of my scale truck? It looks like I'm from a helicopter. Like, I want to take a good picture that might fool someone. What would you say to them?
Get on your hands and knees, unfortunately. And it sounds horrible, but yes, you got to get down low. And I mean, look at your truck and then take a 10th scale person or a 10th scale figurine and see where their eye level would be, and, start going from there and getting low and high. But, if you're shooting from back here, like, definitely that's drone footage for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and there's nothing good, nothing terribly wrong with a nice drone shot here and there, but
No, no, not at all.
or
No.
if you just want to take a picture and be like, "This is my scale truck," that's awesome too. But if you're building your trucks to that next level where it looks very real, you want to take that nice solid scale picture, then you sometimes you have to go the extra mile, and so and
Definitely.
that's what that group's about. That's what a lot. I mean, you're not the first person I've had this conversation with on live at 9:45 because it's one of the areas I'm passionate about, and I probably spend way too much time taking pictures compared to some of the other things I should be doing in my life,
Or not enough.
or not enough. I mean
Or not enough.
that too.
Yeah,
Um,
and
all
more
right,
advice on shooting. Is it okay if I say some more on that?
yeah, absolutely.
So what I always like to do is zoom and crop. You get such a more depth to your shot when you start playing with zoom, and you can really change how your truck looks by, sitting right here and being a single zoom versus 2 times zoom, and then cropping the picture. It's almost kind of like a macro shot, but you get some of the background in there.
Right.
So
So
play
my
with
question
your
with that would be
definitely.
is are you successfully maneuvering that with your phone and not ending up with like a grainy image and a little bit of pixelation and so on and so forth?
Definitely. So I did have a lot of that. And then, of course, this awesome group you created, photography group,
Hmm.
touching your phone and picking your focus point. That unbelievable. I was just like mind blown. This is awesome. So, so when you get that zoom and then you can start focusing on certain points and it becomes really crystal clear. I took that picture of that RC four-wheel drive tire and that was the iPhone with two zoom and just cropped it a little bit. And it was, I thought it turned out great.
Yeah, and I know what picture you're talking about specifically, and it was crystal clear, like camera quality. Like, I figured that was probably with the camera and not with your phone. So,
No, that was the
um,
fun.
yeah, so that's awesome. I didn't realize it was working quite to that level. Uh, all right, so let's talk a little bit about my next question that I've got going on here.
Mhm.
You're fairly new to the hobby. Have you competed in any scale competitions? And if so, what genre of scale competition was?
So I have never competed in my life. I just I there's a place down in Denver called the Crawl Space, and they have a killer rock course and awesome competitions all the time.
Yeah, they do.
Yet for sure, and I've yet to been to one or compete in one. And for me, I think like when I was younger, I played soccer, and when it got into the heavy competition, it almost kind of took the fun away for me. And
Hmm.
I was afraid with this. I want to keep this fun, organic, real, and keep doing it all the time. And if I start competing, then you start. Well, at least myself, I would be afraid I'd start losing the interest in it.
Yeah,
So
I, and I think your statement is 100% valid. I think that people kind of ebb and flow in how that all works. And
definitely,
and I know me over the last like year, I got real competitive for a little while, and then now I've kind of backed up off of that, and I enjoy other aspects of the hobby. Um, but that's one of the things that, with you being so new into it, one of the things that I've enjoyed about this hobby is that there are so many pieces of it that no matter what you
definitely.
do, kind of like circle back around to it being good. Whether you want to build, whether you want to compete, whether you want to take pictures, whether you, I mean, it's just, it's all out there. And there's so many pieces of it that are very like, it's almost like a thousand hobbies inside of a hobby.
You hit that on the head for sure. I mean, you can take uh, like the science part of it, the technology, the electronics. There's math involved, geometry.
Hmm.
There's so much balled up into these things that, like you said, there's so many different pieces of the hobby you can take from it.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I never got into the competition part of it. It never caught my fancy, and to people that do, I think it's great. I think you guys have a blast with it. It's fun watching you guys compete for sure. But it's just kind of different folks, different strokes. I'm not a competitor.
Right. So I just got a comment on the comment section of what's going on here. It says tough room. Dude, there've been like no chat, guys. Where you at? You're all in there. I can see you. I know what's going on. Um, maybe my stream health's not amazing or something, but uh, not a lot of chat going on. So I'm gonna ask you guys, if you have competed in a competition, what is your favorite style, and why is that your favorite style? Let's get a little chat fired up. Um, okay, so let's move back to that whole building piece because that's what caught my eye from you in the first place. What is one thing that you will never leave off of a scale build?
Hmm. Well, battery. I want to drive it.
Well, okay, like
Yeah, just kidding. No. I would say a roof rack. Like everything I've built so far has a roof rack on it. That
huh,
is the one thing that I throw on everything. I don't know why. I love the aesthetic of a roof rack.
that's awesome, man. That's like the one thing I've never ever put on a scale truck.
That awesome.
So but it just proves again, over and over and over again, that there's always something different side of the hobby for different people. And
For
so,
sure.
I mean, it really, really reiterates that. So
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about people you follow in this hobby. With you being new, who are some of the people that you followed inside of the scale crawling segment who you would consider your influences, who you would suggest maybe having possibly be on Live at 9:45?
Oh, let's see. One guy that stands out, Corey Walls. He's got that Tamiya Blackfoot. It's like a big four-door crew cab. It's on a like a monster chassis. Looks like Mr. Kool-Aid coming through. Like, oh yeah, I mean it is huge. And he caught my eye with some of his stuff. I liked all the stuff he's pretty much put out there. Let's see, Johnny Borden. He builds a lot of the cross RC stuff. I like how he paints and how he details. Um, let's see, Scott Lampert for sure. Yourself, you caught my eye a while back. That Tri Van was just like, oh, whoa, hello, and
well,
so
thank you. That
for
was
sure.
probably that was really just me being stubborn. After I got an idea in my head, I wouldn't let it go. So
Well, I'm glad you did because it's awesome for sure. And yeah, and then I mean, just you see so much stuff on these pages that it's hard to remember everything. But those are a few of the ones that stand out that have definitely given me a little inspiration. Another guy, Brennan Savage, I believe his name is. He's in
yeah,
the photography page also. A lot of his stuff caught my eye.
yeah, he's building some really cool stuff for sure right now. I
Definitely,
dig it. And that garage he's building is great for photography. It's set
for
up.
sure.
It was really thought out well and set up in a way that he can have like tons of depth to what he's doing for sure. So,
Right, yeah. A lot of his photography is spot on for sure.
all right, so this is one of the hardest questions I ask people, and it is, what is your favorite build out there on the internet that you've been following, been checking out, that is not your own?
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna third time I'll refer to him, but again, Scott Lampert. He just came out with that cab over engine build.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a, yeah, it's like green and white. It's got a little gasser hot rod that pulls on the back. That thing is unreal. I that just unreal. That thing. My gosh, jaw dropped when I saw that. It is a beautiful rig.
Yeah. So Scott builds some amazing stuff. I actually had the privilege of having him on last season. Probably need to
Awesome.
send him another message because he's built some amazing stuff since I've talked to him. And he was a great interview, so I'd love to do it again. So Scott, if you watch, hit me up. Um,
Definitely.
because I'm probably going to be hitting you up anyway. So,
Do
uh,
it.
all right. So let's talk about the next thing. What is your favorite medium to view and follow the happenings of the Scale RC community? By that I mean, like, are you a Facebook fan, Instagram? Are you completely deeply rooted in the forums? Uh, YouTube all the way? Like, where are you getting all of this stuff from?
So I would say 90% of it is Facebook for sure. I dabbled a very little bit with Instagram. I don't have the time to understand it and get fully engaged in it. And I understand how Facebook works. So I mean, sounds kind of lazy, but at the moment it's all it's all Facebook.
Yeah, no, and I think that a lot of people are stuck with Facebook being their main thing. And I don't mean stuck with necessarily. I mean, like, you probably had a Facebook account for whatever was going on in your real life, and then you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, hey, RC trucks are on Facebook." And then it kind
Bingo.
of begins taking over and so on and so forth. So, um
Exactly.
Scott is here. This is my YouTube channel. Oh, totally didn't realize that was you, Scott. Get a hold of me, man. I'd love to have you on. I'm reading comments and I'm like, what?
There he
I
is.
didn't pick up on that at all. Go check out Scott's YouTube channel. It's tuned, tweaked, and buff. No D. Interesting. So
For
anyway,
sure.
yeah, no, Scott is amazing. He's a great guy, and the other part that was awesome is he'll answer questions and help people out too.
Absolutely.
And
That's what I noticed is he's very informative and he will answer questions and he takes a lot of pictures in depth of what he does so you can really get an idea of how things happen and what he's doing and it's I definitely appreciate that kind of stuff.
yeah, so I need to get used to these YouTube names versus like real names versus forum names. Like, there are so many names for people cracking around in this brain.
Right?
I got that one now. Oh, the D wouldn't fit. That's why it's not on the end there. Awesome. That's great.
Uh,
I love that. Um, okay. So, what is your favorite part about the scale RC?
Oof, let's see. I would say it's seeing the younger kids that are like, 8 and 10 make those posts that, right around Christmas that they got this rig. And then in a month, you see that they've saved their allowance and that they bought their first part and they're asking questions on how to put it on. Like that stuff gets me going for sure. I really love seeing kids getting involved into it and asking questions and I mean, you're a teacher, you can understand that.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so that really like I really enjoy seeing that kind of stuff. And even if you're an older person and you get your first rig and you can, you see like, does this go here? Does this go here? And it's like, I'll offer you what I know to help you build that. And yeah, I really enjoy following them and seeing what they come up with.
Yeah. And so that might be one of the most unique answers that I've gotten for that, because a lot of times people who've been in the hobby for a longer time, who've been in for a
Mhm.
long time, get frustrated with the repeat questions. Like, what bodies fit this wheelbase? What can I do with this? Like, what servo will replace my stock servo? If I upgrade my motor, what is a good motor to upgrade to? So, like, all those questions that everybody that's new is going to have a question and they need answered. A lot of
Right.
the people who've been around a lot longer are like, oh man, I've answered that like 1,000 times. Um, I always look at those, stop, scroll down. If there's already been 3 or 4 answers, I move along.
Right.
Because, but if it's one of the first people, I'm always hitting them up because somebody's got
For
to
sure.
learn from somewhere. And if we as hobbyists aren't supporting the people who are coming into our hobby, then we're doing them a big disservice.
Right, right. I had one little kid around Christmas time. His name was Griffin, and he would text me like every day, and he's like, "Hey, I'm building this SCX10 for my dad. Do you think this looks cool? Do you think this looks cool?" And like, I seriously got a kick out of it. Like, it was interesting. Like, I'm 36 years old, and I'm like having a conversation with a 12-year-old about building a truck for his dad, and it just was cool.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome, man. And I'm sure you were making the kid's day and that things were good. And I guarantee he learned along the way, which is part of the process and what we're all trying to do. So props to you for having the communication with the kid, man, because someone needs to answer those questions. And we all need to take on a little bit of that, I think.
Definitely. And you're going to see the thousand questions you already saw, you're going to see them 1,000 more times. So
Absolutely.
they're not going to go away.
They can't. They can't possibly go. It's just because people don't know.
Right.
So, all right. What is your best piece of advice to someone who is brand new, starting out in this hobby, and kind of looking to begin upgrading their truck?
So upgrading, definitely start small. Don't shoot for the moon right away and expect to, build like a full blown upgraded rig, like get some shocks, throw some shocks on and play with those and see how you like them and put them in different positions. And like that's how I learned my rig was taking pieces. And my first TRX4 I bought like 110 millimeter king shocks for, way too big, but I stuck them on there anyway and played with them. And it really, that's like I said, my first rig, and that's what brought me into it. I had fun with that and tinkering and playing and
Mm-hmm.
just small steps, one at a time.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome. I love that you mentioned that you bought like big shocks for them. They were way too big. Were you shooting for the lifted look?
Oh, totally.
Because so here's what I did. I had a SCX10 Honcho. Back when they were green and like had the beadlock wheels, like they were still like the original style Honcho. And I
Hmm.
went, this would look so cool with huge tires and a lift. And so I bought like these cheap 2.2 wheels, some axial ripsaws that were 2.2s, and then they had like these Y-shaped lift brackets that people would sell online. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure there's still some sitting back like in my hobby room area where I do building, and I installed all that stuff. I put it on there. I took it out. I went to drive up. The first rock I drove up, it flipped over on its back, and I was like, "Well, that was dumb." And so,
Whoops. Yeah. Yeah.
and
So with
so then I spent like the next probably year testing to fixing performance oriented, like how do I make this thing actually run and drive. So it was
right.
cool though. It was definitely a learning experience.
Definitely. And for the beginner, you need to go into it thinking about start building it how you want it. There's so many people that will persuade you, oh, use this, only use this. You can only use this piece, and really just do what you think looks cool. Whether it is as crazy as putting a 10-inch wide bumper on a little Tamiya body or something. If you think it looks cool, do it. So many people, it seems like, get turned off by the negativity brought by, oh, that doesn't look cool, that doesn't look cool. Well, you don't know who that person is and how much they know about this hobby, and you could really discourage them for the rest of their life on the hobby by just saying something silly and negative. So you always want to try and be as positive as possible too.
Right, and I couldn't agree with that more. I've taken a lot of effort and time and put into attempting to frame everything I can in as positive of a way as I possibly can.
For
And I
sure.
think that like that comes back too towards you. So it's like one of those like you get what you give kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
and it's been rewarding and I've enjoyed that for sure.
Def-
So next question, and I'm always interested to hear this one. Where do you see the scale crawling community heading coming years?
Ooh, it's a good question. So I think with 3D printing now, that's going to be a game changer with our hobby. Getting different bodies, different years. I mean, we were pretty soon here. 2 years ago, you couldn't get your hands on a 3D printed body, and now we have guys starting to print nice quality 3D printed bodies. And I'm hoping that is far from a builder's standpoint, that we can start to see a lot of bodies to choose from, because it is kind of a narrow calling for these things right now. You've got so many hard bodies, and it would be nice to reach out and get some really off the wall stuff for sure. So I hope to see the hobby head towards 3D printing and bodies and parts, and yeah.
Oh, that's great. I like it. I like 3D printing. I feel like the cost could come down a little more.
Absolutely.
For everybody, like for the filament, for what it costs to print something, was as those costs come down,
Hmm.
and bodies become more reasonable, I think then
Yep.
you would see that kind of right now they're still kind of a premium thing. Not although they're not that much like really they're not any more expensive than going to buy like a full RC four-wheel drive body kit or so on and so forth. So, I
Right.
mean, you know.
Yeah, and then another direction, speaking of direction, I want to see the hobby go is my daughter at her school. She has an after school elective called STEAM, and that's science, technology, electronics, and math. And I think I'd love to see schools start incorporating building not just scalers, obviously, but anything remote control,
Mhm.
electronics orientated, anything like that, because the amount of stuff I've learned from these little things is unreal, and I can't imagine what their moldable little brains could pull away from these things.
Right on. And so I haven't talked about it in a while, but I run a club at my high school that I
Definitely.
got a bunch of stuff donated from RC Addict and Colors for Kids. Both great organizations,
Hmm.
very generous people. And so we run a club and we have 12 trucks. The first iteration of it was the first half of the year. And so we had like, oh, I think 16 kids like showed up the first day. And then we ended up with 12 trucks. I broke it down so I could serve like two different groups. So it was like 1 day a week. Um, or no, it was 2 days a week on, and each group like rotated 1 day a week or something like that. So like we had a Tuesday group and a Thursday group. We
Uh-huh.
doubled that, and now I have more kids than I can actually have drive in the one group, and in the other group I'm like almost at capacity.
That's
So
awesome.
a lot of interest, a lot of kids that weren't I don't want to say weren't being successful, but weren't thriving in other areas of what was going on at that time of day that are very interested in what's going on with the RC stuff. So it's kind of cool. It's cool to see
Definitely.
who's going toward it. So
That's awesome for sure. I like what you're doing with that.
thank you. And I honestly I just get to play with toy trucks at work. So
Oh, excuses. For sure.
so it's nice, and I like passing stuff like that down to kids. So um
Definitely.
do you currently have any sponsors? And if so, why did you choose to select those people to represent you or to
So
represent?
sure. So I don't have any sponsors. I fund all this and build it all myself. I have shops that I like to use. One, RC Basement, the Crawl Space. I use those guys, and they're both kind of basically small brick and mortar shops here in Denver. And then um, company out in Las Vegas, SRD, Sick Ride Designs. So I got some stuff from them. But otherwise, yeah, no sponsors.
Yeah. So I just generally asked that. I didn't know, honestly, with you, whether or not you had any sponsors or anything like that. I ask it because it
Sure,
often comes up as some kind of like a hot button topic here.
sure,
It's an
definitely.
interesting one. We're kind of winding things down here toward the end of what we've got going on, and I'm curious, as I'm sure everybody else is, what should we expect to see next coming from you?
Oh boy. So I definitely have a few bucket list builds that I'm going to work on. Like the Crewmanchi, that one. I'm going to wrap that one up. And then I have this Tamiya night hauler cab back here. And I have some big plans with that and making that into a drifter.
Eat.
It's definitely. I also want to do some kind of a bigger 6x6. I don't know what exactly yet. That's kind of still kind of thinking about that one. And then I have a plan for another six door, but that's going to take a long time to do if I do choose to pull the trigger on it. Like I said, I need to go into that confident, and there's zero confidence with that one at the moment.
Well, I mean, it happens.
For
And
sure.
some bodies are harder than others. Some builds are harder than others. It all depends on shapes and body
Definitely.
lines and how everything lines up. So,
Definitely.
all right, man. Well, is there anything that I missed? Anything that you need to add to what we've got going on here tonight, or are you good in that front?
I'm pretty good in that. I'd like to give a little shout out to Rob Reimer over
Hmm.
at SRD. He's battling some serious cancer right now, and he and his wife Tay run that small shop. And you guys could just send whatever kind of love and support their way. Check out their website. Just a very core, cool group of people over there, and yeah, I just wanted to give them a quick shout out. Some great people affiliated with that, like Scott Stemrich, Brian White. I could go on forever, but just wanted to give just wanted to give him a little shout out.
Absolutely, man. And I'm gonna guarantee they appreciate that. And
For
I just got
sure.
a whole bunch of hearts on my screen from Brian White right now. So, uh,
Awesome.
um, all right. So if you don't have anything else to add, I'm going to let you go. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. The builds are awesome. They look cool. They're definitely like just far enough outside of the box to really catch some eyes. And
Cool.
I cannot wait to see what's coming next.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me, and again, thank you.
Yeah, man. Anytime, anytime. So, Coulter's information is in the video description down below. Make sure you go check out his stuff and what he's got going on. Um, I don't think you guys will be disappointed. But anyway, man, thanks for being on. I'm going to let you go, close things out, and go on from there.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you.
All right, you too.
Bye bye.
All right, guys, and so that kind of closes out the show and what we have going on for tonight. Next week's episode is not scheduled to be live. That means I'm planning on pre-recording it this week. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to look yet, as this is going to be my first pre-recorded episode. I know that I will kick it to be able to be viewed at 9:45 on next Thursday evening, and so you can watch it like it's live. If I am around and have availability, I will be watching as well. I'll comment with you, I'll have discussion with you, and so on and so forth. Additionally, a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about that I talked about at the beginning when I had my mic muted because I'm a fool and can't remember to hit the button. A, thank you for tuning in. B, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to this channel. Kind of keeps things rolling. It creates some alerts for you, some notifications, and if you do subscribe, hit that alert bell. Additionally, when I create events stating that we're going to go live, there's a thing inside of there where it gives you an option that you can click it to have it remind you that I will be going live at that time. That's just one more fail-safe in that alert system that will let you know that we're going to go live, and you can check out these people that you want to see their interview and hear their piece of the story. I plan on having a whole bunch of more interviews coming. I'm shooting for one a week, and that's the goal. I have a question right here that says, who's next? I can't remember. Next is Ed Piccola. We're going to talk about the East Coast Scale Challenge. If you didn't just get your tickets, maybe you can still get in for, like, I think the Rose Point Challenge, or maybe might have some tickets still available. Following that, I have another guest lined up that I don't really feel quite yet. And then, again, on the 28th, I will not be live, but I will have a pre-recorded episode for you that is going to be absolutely killer. I'm not revealing that one. That one's going to be mystery for a couple more days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. You will see. But that one is lined up, ready to go, and it's going to be a good one. So, last but not least, check out all of my stuff. It's inside of the video description down below. Leave me a comment if you watch this after the fact. I would love to hear from you. I answer every comment. I want to hear input from you guys. Let me know what you like, don't like. I mean, any input is good input. I definitely accept constructive criticism. And so, last but not least, thank you all for tuning in. I value each and every one of your views. I value all of your time, and I truly appreciate you logging in this week, next week, every week, whenever you can, and checking out what's going on. So, without further ado, I want to end this by saying thank you all of you for tuning in. If it wasn't for all of you, it would just be me talking to a camera in my basement. That's super boring. No one wants to watch it. So, until next time, I'll catch you all there.